Good evening, dear listeners, and welcome to Mystery Tales, where we delve into the shadows of the human soul through timeless stories of intrigue and deduction. I'm your host, Alexander Thorne, and tonight I have a special treat for you. A brand new Hercule Poirot Mystery crafted in the inimitable style of Dame Agatha Christie. Settle in with a cup of tea, dim the lights, and let yourself be transported to the misty moors of 1920s England. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a whisper of suspense. And tell me in the comments below, where are you listening from tonight? Is it a cozy armchair in London or perhaps a rainy evening in New York? I'd love to hear from you. Chapter 1. The Invitation to Blackthorn Manor. In the autumn of 1927, the city of London was cloaked in a fog that curled through its cobblestone streets like the tendrils of some great unseen beast. At Whitehaven Mansions, in a modest yet impeccably tidy apartment, Hercule Poirot sat at his mahogany desk, his small, precise hands arranging a collection of porcelain teacups with the care one might reserve for priceless artifacts. The little Belgian detective, with his egg-shaped head, meticulously waxed mustache, and piercing green eyes that seemed to see beyond the surface of things, was a man who cherished order above all else. The symmetry of his surroundings, polished silver spoons aligned perfectly, books arranged by height, was a reflection of his mind, where chaos was an enemy to be vanquished by logic. On this particular morning, as the distant chime of Big Ben reverberated through the fog, Poirot's routine was interrupted by the sharp rap of knuckles on his door. Captain Arthur Hastings, his loyal friend and confidant, looked up from the armchair where he lounged, his fair hair slightly mussed and his morning newspaper crumpled from idle reading. Hastings was the quintessential Englishman, earnest, straightforward, and ever ready for adventure, though he often found himself outpaced by Poirot's nimble intellect. "Who could that be at this hour, Poirot?" Hastings asked, folding the paper with a rustle. "Not another case, surely." Poirot's mustache twitched, a subtle sign of amusement. "Mon cher Hastings, the world does not pause for the convenience of Hercule Poirot. Let us see what fate has delivered." The door opened to reveal a young messenger boy, no older than 16, his cap askew and his cheeks flushed from the chill. He handed Poirot an envelope sealed with a crimson wax crest depicting a stag beneath an oak tree. The letter was addressed in a hurried, masculine hand, and Poirot's fingers traced the embossed seal with curiosity. "The crest of Blackthorn Manor," he murmured, slicing open the envelope with a silver letter opener. The letter was brief but urgent, penned by Sir Reginald Hargrove, a wealthy industrialist whose name was synonymous with steel and railways. It read, "Mon cher Poirot, I humbly request your presence at Blackthorn Manor this weekend. A matter of grave delicacy requires your singular expertise. I fear treachery within my own circle, and discretion is paramount. Yours sincerely, R. Hargrove." Poirot's eyes gleamed with interest, and he passed the letter to Hastings, who read it with a frown. "Treachery, eh? Sounds like trouble brewing in Sussex. Shall we go, old chap?" "But of course, Hastings," Poirot replied, rising with a flourish. "The little grey cells, they are summoned, and we shall not disappoint. Pack your valise. We depart for Blackthorn Manor this afternoon." The train journey from London to Sussex was a study in contrasts. Hastings marveled at the passing countryside, fields of golden stubble, hedgerows draped in mist, and villages with church spires piercing the sky, while Poirot muttered complaints about the rattling carriage and the abominable quality of the tea served by a harried porter. "This is not tea, Hastings," he declared, setting down the cup with a grimace. "It is an insult to civilization." By late afternoon, the train deposited them at a small station near Blackthorn Manor, where a chauffeured Rolls-Royce awaited. The drive through the Sussex countryside revealed a landscape of timeless beauty. Rolling hills dotted with grazing sheep, ancient stone walls mossy with age, and copses of oak and beech glowing in the autumn light. At last the manor came into view, a grand Georgian edifice of pale stone, its windows glinting like watchful eyes. Ivy clung to its walls and twin chimneys stood sentinel against the sky. Beyond the formal gardens, a peculiar structure caught Poirot's eye. The glass chapel, a Victorian folly crafted entirely of glass panels and wrought iron frames, shimmering like a jewel amidst the manicured lawns. Its transparent walls reflected the fading sun, casting prisms of light that danced across the roses and boxwood hedges. Magnifique, Poirot murmured, his gaze fixed on the chapel. A place of beauty, Hastings, but perhaps also of secrets. Glass reveals all, yet hides much in its reflections. The car rolled to a stop before the manor's grand entrance, where Jenkins, the butler, awaited them. A man in his 50s with a face like weathered oak and eyes that betrayed nothing, Jenkins bowed stiffly. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, Sir Reginald awaits you in the drawing-room," he intoned, his voice as measured as a metronome. He led them through a marbled hall, past portraits of stern-faced Hargrove ancestors whose painted gazes seemed to follow their every step. The drawing-room was a vision of opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light over mahogany furniture, velvet drapes in deep burgundy-framed tall windows, and a fire crackled in a massive hearth. Sir Reginald Hargrove stood by the mantel, a robust man of 60 with a ruddy complexion and a voice that boomed like a cannon. "Poirot, thank heavens, you've come," he exclaimed, shaking Poirot's hand with a vigor that made the detective wince. "And Captain Hastings, splendid to meet you." The room was alive with an eclectic assembly of guests, each introduced with the casual elegance of a well-rehearsed host. Lady Evelyn Hargrove, Sir Reginald's wife, was a vision of grace, her silver hair swept into a chignon, her silk gown whispering as she moved. Yet her hands trembled slightly as she poured tea, a detail Poirot noted with a tilt of his head. Their son, Victor Hargrove, was a dashing figure in his 30s, his face tanned from recent travels in India, his eyes restless as they darted about the room. Beside him stood Miss Clara Beaumont, Lady Evelyn's niece, a vivacious beauty with bobbed chestnut hair and a string of pearls that gleamed against her pale skin. Rumors swirled that she was Victor's fiancée, though her laughter seemed a touch too bright, as if masking something unspoken. Dr. Elias Thorne, the family physician, was a scholarly man with wire-rimmed spectacles and a quiet demeanor. His fingers stained faintly with ink as if he'd been writing late into the night. Finally, Mr. Geoffrey Langston, Sir Reginald's business partner, cut a sharp figure in a tailored suit, his calculating gaze lingering on each guest as he nursed a brandy despite the early hour. As the group exchanged pleasantries, Sir Reginald drew Poirot aside, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "It's poison, Poirot. Anonymous letters, 3 of them delivered this past week, claim someone means to poison me at tonight's dinner in the glass chapel. Absurd, perhaps, but I'm revising my will and, well, motives are thick as flies around here." Poirot's eyes narrowed, his mind already sifting possibilities. "A will, you say? And who stands to benefit, Sir Reginald?" The industrialist hesitated, glancing at the guests. "Victor, of course, but he's reckless. Squandered funds in India. Clara, if she marries him. Evelyn, naturally, though she's loyal. Langston's after my shares in the company. Even Thorne. Well, he's been with us for years, but one never knows." Poirot nodded, his expression inscrutable. "Fear not, mon ami. Hercule Poirot shall observe, and the truth it shall emerge like a diamond from the rough." As the group adjourned to the gardens for a tour, Poirot lagged behind, his gaze fixed on the glass chapel. Its fragile beauty stood in stark contrast to the undercurrents of tension rippling through the party. Victor argued quietly with his father about investments. Clara's laughter rang out as she walked arm in arm with Dr. Thorne, and Langston's sharp voice cut through the air, pressing Sir Reginald on business matters. Lady Evelyn, meanwhile, clutched her shawl, her eyes distant as if lost in memory. "Hastings," Poirot said softly, his fingers steepled in thought. "This chapel, it is a stage, and tonight I fear the curtain rises on a drama most dangerous." The air grew cooler as the sun dipped below the horizon, and the guests made their way toward the glass chapel, where a dinner to celebrate Victor and Clara's engagement awaited. Poirot's little gray cells hummed with anticipation, for in the delicate balance of this gathering, he sensed the first threads of a deadly web. Chapter 2. Shadows in the Garden. The autumn afternoon at Blackthorn Manor draped the Sussex countryside in a golden haze, the air crisp with the scent of fallen leaves and wood smoke. Hercule Poirot, his polished shoes crunching on the gravel path, walked beside Captain Hastings toward the glass chapel, the peculiar Victorian folly that stood like a crystalline beacon in the formal gardens. The chapel's transparent walls, framed in delicate wrought-iron filigree, caught the waning sunlight, casting rainbows that danced across the manicured lawns and rosebeds. To Poirot, it was a marvel of engineering, yet its fragility hinted at vulnerability, a place where secrets could be seen but not easily grasped. "Magnifique, is it not, Hastings?" Poirot remarked, his green eyes scanning the structure. "A chapel of glass where all is visible, yet the heart of man remains opaque. It is a paradox, no?" Hastings, his hands in his pockets, squinted at the chapel. "Rather exposed, if you ask me. A queer place for a dinner. Anyone could peer in from the gardens." "Précisément," Poirot said, his mustache curling slightly. "And that, mon ami, is what makes it so intriguing. A stage for drama where every gesture is observed." The guests of Blackthorn Manor had gathered for a pre-dinner tour of the estate, led by Lady Evelyn Hargrove, whose elegance belied the faint tension in her posture. She spoke of the chapel's history with practiced grace. Constructed in 1872 by Sir Reginald's grandfather as a memorial to his late wife, it had hosted weddings, christenings, and whispered rendezvous for decades. Its oak doors, heavy and bolted, ensured privacy, while the glass walls offered an illusion of openness. Tonight it would host a celebratory dinner for Victor Hargrove and Clara Beaumont's engagement, a small affair for the family and their intimates. As the group approached, Poirot noted the dynamics among them. Victor Hargrove, his tanned face set in a scowl, walked apart from his father, Sir Reginald, their voices low but sharp in a discussion about Indian investments gone awry. "You've no right to cut me out, father," Victor muttered, his hands clenched. Sir Reginald, his ruddy cheeks flushed, waved a dismissive hand. "You've squandered enough, boy. No more." Clara Beaumont, radiant in an emerald green dress that matched her eyes, laughed brightly as she chatted with Dr. Elias Thorne, the family physician. Her flirtatious manner drew a blush to the doctor's scholarly face, his spectacles glinting as he murmured something about botany. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Clara's charm seemed calculated, her glances darting toward Victor as if gauging his reaction. Mr. Geoffrey Langston, Sir Reginald's business partner, trailed behind, his sharp features taut as he cornered the industrialist. "Reginald, we must discuss the merger. Time's running out," he hissed, clutching a leather portfolio. Sir Reginald's response was curt. "Not now, Geoffrey. Tonight is for family." Lady Evelyn, guiding the group, paused before the chapel's entrance. "This place has always been special," she said, her voice tinged with melancholy. "My mother-in-law's spirit lingers here, or so they say." Her eyes flickered to the rose garden where shadows lengthened under ancient oaks. Inside the chapel, the air was cool, the glass walls amplifying the sounds of the garden. Distant birdsong, the rustle of leaves. The interior was simple yet elegant. A long mahogany table set with crystal goblets, silver cutlery, and candelabras that would soon cast a warm glow. The oak doors, carved with intricate vines, stood as the only barrier to the outside world, their bolts heavy and secure. Poirot's gaze swept the room, noting every detail. The alignment of chairs, the placement of candlesticks, the faint scratches on the iron frames where ivy had crept too close. "Hastings," he whispered. "Observe the suspects. Victor, he burns with resentment. Clara, her charm is a mask. Dr. Thorne, so quiet, perhaps too quiet. Langston, greedy for power. And Lady Evelyn, her hands, they tremble. Why?" Hastings nodded, though his brow furrowed. "You think one of them sent those letters about poison?" "Perhaps," Poirot replied, his voice soft as velvet. "Or perhaps the letters are but a distraction. The little gray cells, they sense a deeper game." As evening fell, the guests reconvened in the glass chapel for dinner. The sky beyond the glass, now a deep indigo speckled with stars. The table gleamed under candlelight, the flames reflecting in the walls like 1,000 tiny eyes. The menu, prepared by the Manor's chef under Lady Evelyn's supervision, was a feast of refinement. Consommé with delicate herbs, roast pheasant with cranberry sauce, buttery potatoes, and a decadent chocolate mousse for dessert, paired with a robust Bordeaux and a crisp champagne. Sir Reginald, at the head of the table, stood to offer a toast, his booming voice filling the chapel. "To family, to love, and to futures bright," he declared, raising his glass. The others followed, their smiles tight, Victor's forced, Clara's radiant but fleeting. Langston's thin, Dr. Thorne's absent-minded, Lady Evelyn's tinged with sadness. Jenkins the butler moved silently, refilling glasses and clearing plates with the precision of a clock. Poirot, seated beside Hastings, sipped his wine sparingly, his eyes darting from face to face. He noted Clara's quick glance at Victor, Langston's fidgeting with his napkin, Dr. Thorne's distracted gaze toward the garden. The atmosphere was heavy, the laughter strained, as if each guest sensed the undercurrent of Sir Reginald's earlier warning about poison. The meal progressed smoothly until the mousse was served, each guest receiving a crystal dish of rich, dark chocolate adorned with a curl of cream. Sir Reginald, ever the hearty eater, took a generous spoonful, savoring it with a chuckle. "Evelyn, you've outdone yourself," he said, nodding to his wife. But as he reached for his wine, his face contorted. His hand flew to his throat, his eyes wide with panic. "Poison!" he gasped, his voice a strangled croak. The dish slipped from his fingers, shattering on the stone floor, and he collapsed, his body convulsing briefly before going still. Chaos erupted. Clara screamed, her pearls clattering as she clutched them. Victor leaped to his father's side, shouting for help. Lady Evelyn froze, her face pale as the glass around them. Dr. Thorne rushed forward, his medical bag already in hand. Langston backed away, his brandy glass trembling. Poirot rose, his calm presence a stark contrast to the pandemonium. "Mesdames et messieurs, remain where you are," he commanded, his voice cutting through the din. He knelt beside Sir Reginald, his nose wrinkling at the faint almond-like scent on the man's breath. "Cyanide," he murmured to Hastings. "Swift and deadly. But how? In a locked room of glass." Hastings, his face ashen, glanced at the bolted oak doors. "Locked from the inside, Poirot. No one entered or left during dinner. It's impossible." "Non, Hastings," Poirot said, his eyes gleaming with purpose. "The impossible is merely a challenge to the little gray cells. The poison was in the mousse, his alone. But how was it delivered? That is the question." As Dr. Thorne pronounced Sir Reginald dead, the guests stood in stunned silence, their reflections distorted in the glass walls. Jenkins, ever stoic, confirmed the doors had been bolted as per tradition, ensuring privacy. The windows, sealed in their iron frames, showed no signs of tampering. The chapel was a sealed box, a transparent tomb where death had struck under the gaze of all. Poirot paced slowly, his polished shoes clicking on the stone floor. He examined the shattered dish, the spilled wine glass, the untouched plates of the others. "The method, it is clever," he said softly. "The killer is among us, hiding in plain sight." Outside, the garden lay dark, the roses swallowed by shadow. Somewhere in that darkness, Poirot sensed, lay the key to the impossible crime. Chapter 3. The Locked Chapel Enigma. The glass chapel, once a beacon of elegance in the twilight gardens of Blackthorn Manor, had transformed into a crystalline crypt under the weight of Sir Reginald Hargrove's sudden death. The candlelight, which had moments ago cast a warm glow over the celebratory dinner, now flickered mournfully, reflecting in the glass walls like ghostly eyes. Hercule Poirot stood at the center of the chaos, his compact frame radiating authority, his green eyes sharp as they scanned the scene. The air was thick with shock and suspicion, the almond-like scent of cyanide lingering faintly over Sir Reginald's lifeless form, slumped at the head of the mahogany table. Captain Arthur Hastings, his face pale and his usual cheer dimmed, hovered near Poirot, his hands fidgeting. "Good Lord, Poirot," he whispered, glancing at the bolted oak doors. "It's impossible. The chapel was locked, no one came in or out, and yet... poison. How could it happen?" Poirot's mustache twitched, a subtle sign of his mind at work. "Impossible, you say, Hastings? Non, the impossible is merely a puzzle that awaits the proper perspective. The little gray cells, they are already stirring. We shall find the truth." The guests stood frozen, their reflections distorted in the glass walls. Lady Evelyn Hargrove, her silver hair disheveled, clutched a handkerchief, her eyes brimming with tears. Victor Hargrove knelt beside his father's body, his tanned face contorted with grief or perhaps guilt. Clara Beaumont, her emerald dress now seeming garish in the grim light, pressed a hand to her mouth, her pearls trembling. Dr. Elias Thorne, the family physician, was methodically checking Sir Reginald's pulse, though his expression betrayed the futility of the act. Mr. Geoffrey Langston, the business partner, stood apart, his sharp features pale as he gripped his brandy glass, his eyes darting nervously. Jenkins, the butler, remained by the door, his weathered face impassive, though his hands were clasped tightly behind his back. Poirot raised a hand, his voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade. "Mesdames et messieurs, no one is to leave this room until the authorities arrive. We are in the presence of murder, and the killer is among us. Hastings, telephone Inspector Japp at Scotland Yard at once." Hastings nodded, hurrying to the Manor's telephone in the hall, his footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Poirot turned his attention to the scene, his movements deliberate as he examined Sir Reginald's body. The industrialist's ruddy face was frozen in a grimace, his eyes wide with the terror of his final moments. The shattered crystal dish of chocolate mousse lay at his feet, its contents splattered across the stone floor, mingling with a spilled glass of Bordeaux. Poirot leaned closer, his nose wrinkling at the faint telltale scent of cyanide emanating from the dessert. "Cyanide," he confirmed softly, "swift, silent, and undetectable until consumed. But why only Sir Reginald's mousse? The others? They are untouched." Dr. Thorne looked up, his wire-rimmed spectacles glinting. "It's unmistakable, Monsieur Poirot. I've seen cyanide poisoning before, death within minutes." Poirot nodded, his gaze shifting to the table. Each guest's dessert dish remained intact, their contents pristine. The wine glasses, too, appeared untainted, though Sir Reginald's was overturned, its contents staining the tablecloth. Poirot's fingers traced the edge of the table, noting the precise arrangement of cutlery and the candelabras, their flame steady despite the turmoil. The oak doors, heavy and bolted from the inside, were the chapel's only entrance and exit. Jenkins, summoned forward, confirmed their security. "I bolted them myself, sir, as is custom during family dinners here. No duplicates exist, and the locks are sound." Poirot examined the doors, their carved vines intricate under his touch. The bolts were indeed secure, and the glass walls, seamless in their iron frames, showed no signs of tampering. No cracks, no forced entry. The chapel was a locked room, transparent yet impenetrable, a paradox that thrilled Poirot's methodical mind. As Hastings returned, breathless, he announced, "Jap's on his way, Poirot. Should be here within the hour." "Bon," Poirot replied, turning to the guests. "Until Inspector Jap arrives, we shall begin. Each of you had opportunity, for you were all present. Let us explore motive." He began with Lady Evelyn, whose composure cracked as she spoke. I prepared the mousse myself with the chef's help. It was a family recipe meant to be a treat for Victor's engagement. I swear there was no poison when I left the kitchen." Her voice trembled and she dabbed her eyes. "Reginald had enemies in business, but here, among us, it's unthinkable." Victor, rising from his father's side, his fists clenched, spoke next. "Father was cutting me out of the will, said I was reckless with the money I made in India, investments that went sour. We argued, yes, but murder, I'd never—" His voice broke, his eyes darting to Clara. Clara, her beauty now fragile under scrutiny, clutched her pearls. "Uncle Reginald didn't approve of our engagement. He thought I was after the family fortune, but I love Victor. I'd never harm anyone." Her voice was earnest, but her glance toward Dr. Thorne was fleeting, almost guilty. Dr. Thorne adjusted his spectacles, his tone measured. "As the family physician, I have access to cyanide. It's used in small doses for certain treatments. But Sir Reginald was my patient and friend. Why would I harm him?" His hands, Poirot noted, were steady, but his eyes avoided the body. Langston, his brandy glass now empty, spoke sharply. "Ridiculous accusations. Reginald and I had disagreements over the company, shares, mergers, but murder? Preposterous. I'd gain nothing by his death." His fingers tapped nervously on his portfolio. Poirot paced slowly, his polished shoes clicking rhythmically. "Motives. They are plentiful. Inheritance for Victor, love or ambition for Clara, professional rivalry for Langston, perhaps loyalty or betrayal for Dr. Thorne. And Lady Evelyn, a wife's heart holds many secrets. But the method, this is the enigma. A locked room, a poison delivered under our noses. How?" He knelt by the shattered dish, examining the mousse's remnants. A faint scratch on the glass wall overlooking the garden caught his eye, barely visible, like a hairline fracture. He traced it with a gloved finger, his brow furrowing. "Interesting," he murmured. Nearby, the spilled wine glass lay, its stem intact but its contents lost. A broken saucer, chipped during the chaos, lay discarded under the table. "Jenkins," Poirot called. "Describe the service. Who handled the dishes?" The butler stepped forward, his voice even. "I served the wine and cleared the main course. The mousse was brought in by the kitchen maid under Lady Evelyn's instructions. Each dish was placed directly before the guests." "And the wine?" Poirot pressed. "I poured it myself from the same decanter," Jenkins replied. "No one touched Sir Reginald's glass but me." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "A decanter shared, yet only one poisoned. A dish prepared, yet only one deadly. The killer is clever, we?" As the guests shifted uncomfortably, Inspector Jap arrived, his burly frame filling the doorway. His weathered face broke into a wry grin. "Blimey, Poirot, another one? Locked room, poisoned dessert, and a room full of suspects. You do pick 'em. Mon ami Jap, Poirot said, bowing slightly. You arrive at the perfect moment. We have a puzzle most exquisite. Jap surveyed the scene, his notebook already open. Right, let's get to it. Body stays put until the coroner arrives. Poirot, any early thoughts? Poirot gestured to the glass walls. The chapel is sealed, the doors bolted, the windows intact. Yet cyanide found its way to Sir Reginald alone. The answer lies in what we do not yet see. Jap grunted, directing his constables to secure the scene. Poirot continued his examination, noting the positions of each guest during the toast. Victor had been to his father's right, Clara to his left. Dr. Thorne sat across, Langston at the far end, Lady Evelyn beside Clara. Jenkins had moved behind Sir Reginald, refilling glasses just before the mousse was served. Hastings, Poirot said softly. The scratch on the glass, it is no accident, and the wine spilled so conveniently. We must look beyond the obvious. As the coroner arrived and Sir Reginald's body was prepared for removal, the guests were escorted to the manor's drawing room under Jap's watchful eye. Poirot lingered in the chapel, his gaze fixed on the glass wall, the garden beyond now shrouded in darkness. The truth, he murmured. It hides in the shadows, but Hercule Poirot shall bring it to light. Chapter 4. Whispers of the Past. The morning after Sir Reginald Hargrove's shocking death dawned over Blackthorn Manor with a veil of mist that clung to the Sussex hills, shrouding the estate in an ethereal hush. The glass chapel, its transparent walls now, dulled by the gray light, stood as a silent witness to the previous night's tragedy. Inside the manor, the air was heavy with grief and suspicion. The once vibrant halls now echoing with the somber tread of Inspector Jap's constables. Hercule Poirot, immaculate in his tailored suit despite the early hour, stood in the manor's library, a cavernous room lined with leather-bound volumes and the faint scent of aged paper. His green eyes gleamed with purpose, his fingers steepled as he addressed the assembled guests. Mesdames et messieurs, Poirot began, his voice calm yet commanding, a crime most heinous has been committed. Sir Reginald was poisoned with cyanide in a locked chapel, under the eyes of all present. Each of you had opportunity, and each, I suspect, harbors a motive. Let us now peel back the layers of this enigma. Captain Arthur Hastings, standing by a tall window overlooking the misty gardens, shifted uneasily. Poirot, it's baffling, he whispered. The doors were bolted, the glass intact. It's as if the poison appeared by magic. Magic, Hastings? Poirot's mustache curled slightly. No, there is no magic, only method. The little gray cells, they will find the path. The suspects sat in a tense semicircle. Lady Evelyn Hargrove, her silver hair pinned tightly, her hands clasped to hide their tremor. Victor Hargrove, his tanned face etched with defiance. Clara Beaumont, her beauty subdued by red-rimmed eyes. Dr. Elias Thorne, his scholarly demeanor strained as he adjusted his spectacles. And Mr. Geoffrey Langston, his sharp features taut, a cigarette burning between his fingers. Jenkins, the butler, stood by the door, his weathered face impassive but his eyes watchful. Poirot began with Lady Evelyn, his tone gentle but probing. Madam, you prepared the mousse. Tell me of its journey from kitchen to table. Lady Evelyn's voice wavered. I oversaw the recipe, yes, with the chef. It was a family tradition. Chocolate mousse for celebrations. I tasted it myself in the kitchen. It was perfect. The maid delivered the dishes to Jenkins, who served them in the chapel. Her eyes darted to Victor, then away. But there's something else. Years ago I had an indiscretion. An affair with Geoffrey Langston. It ended bitterly and Reginald forgave me, but Geoffrey never did. Could he? Her voice trailed off, her gaze fixed on the floor. Langston's cigarette paused mid-air, his eyes narrowing. Evelyn, that's ancient history. I've no grudge worth murder. Reginald and I had our disputes, business shares, but I'd gain nothing by his death. My future's tied to the company's success. Poirot turned to Victor, whose fists clenched. Monsieur Victor, your father threatened to alter his will. Speak of this. Victor's jaw tightened. He called me reckless. My ventures in India, importing artifacts, lost money. He said I'd get nothing unless I proved myself. We argued, yes, but I didn't kill him. His eyes flicked to Clara, a silent plea in them. Clara, her pearls glinting as she leaned forward, spoke softly. Uncle Reginald thought I was a gold digger. I wrote anonymous letters, not the poison ones, I swear, to nudge him toward approving our engagement. I thought if he believed others supported us, he'd relent. I was wrong. Her voice broke, and she glanced at Dr. Thorne, who looked away. Dr. Thorne cleared his throat, his voice steady but low. I prescribed cyanide in pill form for Sir Reginald's insomnia. Small, controlled doses. It's possible someone crushed them, but my supply is locked in my office. I've no reason to harm him. He funded my research. Poirot's eyes gleamed. And yet motives abound. Betrayal from an old affair, inheritance denied, love contested, professional rivalry. But the method, this locked room, requires ingenuity. He paced the library, his polished shoes clicking on the parquet floor. Let us consider the clues. The moose, poisoned with cyanide. The wine glass spilled, a scratch on the glass wall so faint yet so curious. And the doors, bolted from within. Jenkins, confirm again. No one entered after you locked the chapel? None, sir, Jenkins replied, his voice like gravel. I stood by the door until the dessert was served. Poirot nodded, then turned to the group. I require access to your rooms and belongings. The truth hides in details. The search began, yielding a tangle of clues and distractions. In Victor's room, a missing key to the chapel was found under a rug, but Jenkins confirmed it was a spare, unused for years. In Clara's handbag, a vial labeled perfume raised suspicions, but testing revealed it harmless. A floral scent, not poison. In the garden, footprints led from the chapel to a hedge, but they ended abruptly as if the walker had vanished. A red herring, Poirot mused, or a deliberate misdirection. Returning to the glass chapel, Poirot examined the scratch on the glass wall more closely. It was not a crack, but a tiny circular hole, barely wider than a pin, overlooking the rose garden. Hastings, he said, pointing. This hole, it is no accident. A dart, perhaps? A needle? The killer used the garden's darkness as cover. Hastings frowned. But the moose was on the table, Poirot. How could a dart reach it through a hole so small and only target Sir Reginald? A question most excellent, Poirot replied, his fingers tracing the iron frame. The method is mechanical, precise. We must look closer. In the Manor's kitchen, Poirot interrogated the chef, a stout woman named Mrs. Baxter, who swore the moose was prepared under Lady Evelyn's watchful eye. No one tampered with it, sir, she insisted. I'd stake my life on it. Back in the library, Poirot gathered the suspects again, his gaze piercing. The hole in the glass suggests a device, something small, delivered from outside. But the cyanide, it was in the mousse, not the wine. Why? And how? Clara's voice trembled. I saw something. During the toast, a shadow in the garden moving near the chapel. I thought it was a trick of the light. Victor scoffed. You're imagining things, Clara, or covering your tracks. Enough, Poirot said sharply. Accusations without evidence are but noise. Let us consider the past. Lady Evelyn, you spoke of an affair. Was there more to this history? Lady Evelyn hesitated, then confessed, "Geoffrey sent me letters after it ended, bitter, threatening. I burned them, but Reginald knew. He never trusted Geoffrey again." Langston stubbed out his cigarette, his face pale. "Those were private, Evelyn. And yes, I sent the anonymous letters about poison, not to kill, but to scare Reginald into selling me his shares. A foolish mistake, not murder." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "A mistake or a mask? The letters warned of poison, and poison struck. Coincidence, Monsieur Langston?" As the group dispersed, Poirot lingered in the library, examining a photograph of the glass chapel from decades past, its iron frame gleaming in a sepia print. A faint memory stirred, a tale of the chapel's construction, its iron lattice designed to amplify sound for outdoor sermons. Could it amplify something else? A vibration? A mechanism? "Hastings," Poirot said, his voice low. "The chapel is not just glass and iron. It is a machine, perhaps, for deception. The hole, the moose, the shadow in the garden. They are threads in a tapestry most intricate." Outside, the mist thickened, cloaking the manor in secrecy. Poirot's mind whirred, sifting through the clues. The hole too precise for chance, the footprints leading nowhere, the key, a distraction. The killer, he knew, was weaving a web of misdirection, but Hercule Poirot was no stranger to untangling lies. Chapter 5. Hidden Alliances. The mist that cloaked Blackthorn Manor had thickened by midday, wrapping the Sussex estate in a ghostly embrace that mirrored the tangled suspicions within its walls. The glass chapel, its transparent panes dulled by the gray light, stood as a silent sentinel in the gardens, its secrets locked tighter than the heavy oak doors that had failed to prevent Sir Reginald Hargrove's murder. Inside the manor, Hercule Poirot paced the library, his polished shoes clicking rhythmically on the parquet floor, his green eyes sharp with the intensity of a hawk. The little Belgian detective, his egg-shaped head tilted in thought, was piecing together the fragments of an impossible crime. Cyanide in a chocolate mousse, delivered in a locked room under the gaze of all. Captain Arthur Hastings, leaning against a bookshelf, rubbed his temples. "Poirot, it's maddening," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. "The hole in the glass, the bolted doors, the motives piling up. It's like chasing shadows. Every clue seems to lead nowhere." Poirot's mustache curled slightly, a sign of his mind's quiet triumph. "Non, mon ami, the shadows are where the truth hides. The clues, the hole, the footprints, the key, they are not the destination but the path. And now, we uncover alliances, for no killer acts alone without reason." The suspects had been summoned back to the library, their faces a gallery of unease. Lady Evelyn Hargrove sat rigidly, her silver hair pinned tightly, her hands folded to conceal their tremor. Victor Hargrove, his tanned face etched with defiance, stood by the window, his eyes darting to the garden. Clara Beaumont, her emerald dress now creased, twisted her pearls nervously, her beauty overshadowed by fear. Dr. Elias Thorne, the physician, adjusted his wire-rimmed spectacles, his scholarly calm fraying at the edges. Mr. Geoffrey Langston, the business partner, lit another cigarette, his sharp features taut as he exhaled a plume of smoke. Jenkins, the butler, remained by the door, his weathered face a mask of stoic duty. Poirot began, his voice soft but commanding. "Mesdames et messieurs, the web of this crime grows complex. Motives we have, inheritance, love, betrayal, ambition, but now we uncover connections, hidden alliances that weave through your pasts. Let us speak plainly." He turned to Victor and Langston, his gaze piercing. "Monsieur Victor, Monsieur Langston, you were seen last night after dinner in a heated discussion by the stables." What was said? Victor's jaw tightened, but Langston spoke first, his voice clipped. "Business, Poirot. Victor wanted my support to convince Reginald to keep him in the will. I refused. My own dealings with Reginald were strained enough. Victor's eyes flashed. That's half the truth. You wanted father's shares, Langston. You proposed we force him out of the company, merge it under your control. I said no. I'd never betray him like that. Poirot's eyes gleamed. A plot, then, to oust Sir Reginald. But did it turn to murder when persuasion failed? Both men protested, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of denial. Poirot raised a hand, silencing them. We shall see. Madame Evelyn, you and Dr. Thorne were seen whispering in the garden this morning. What secrets do you share? Lady Evelyn's face paled, her handkerchief twisting in her hands. It was a family matter. Reginald had a secret, an illegitimate child from years ago before our marriage. He planned to include them in the will, reducing Victor's share. Dr. Thorne knew as he'd treated the child's mother long ago. We feared Victor's reaction. Dr. Thorne nodded, his voice low. It's true. I advised discretion, but Reginald was resolute. I had no cause to harm him. He trusted me. Poirot's brow arched. A secret heir. Most interesting. And you, Mademoiselle Clara, you claimed to see a shadow in the garden during the toast. Yet you hesitated to speak until pressed. Why? Clara's voice trembled, her eyes darting to Victor. I was afraid. It was just a flicker near the roses. I thought it was my imagination, but now I'm not sure. Someone was out there, I swear. Victor scoffed. Convenient, Clara, covering your own tracks, perhaps. Enough, Poirot snapped, his tone sharp as a whip. Accusations are but dust without proof. Let us return to the chapel. Poirot led the group to the glass chapel, its glass walls now streaked with moisture from the mist. He knelt by the tiny hole in the glass, his gloved finger tracing its edge. This hole, he said, is no accident. It suggests a device, a needle perhaps, or a dart, delivering cyanide from the garden. But the mousse was inside, untouched until served. The puzzle deepens. Hastings frowned. But Poirot, how could a needle reach the mousse through such a small hole and only Sir Reginald's dish? It defies logic. Logic, Hastings, is our ally, Poirot replied, his eyes scanning the iron frame. The chapel's structure, it is not merely decorative. The iron, it conducts sound, perhaps vibration. Could it conduct something else? A new clue emerged. A faint humming sound, barely audible, when Poirot tapped the iron frame near the hole. He paused, his mind racing. A mechanism, perhaps. Hidden in the frame itself? The investigation shifted to the Manor's archives, where Poirot uncovered blueprints of the glass chapel, drawn in 1872. The iron lattice, designed to amplify sound for sermons, had hidden compartments for maintenance, small but large enough for a device. Intriguing, Poirot murmured, but we need more. Back in the library, a red herring surfaced. A local legend about the glass chapel whispered among the staff. Decades ago, a jilted bride had poisoned herself within its walls, her ghost said to haunt the gardens. Clara shivered at the tale, but Poirot dismissed it. Ghosts do not wield cyanide, mademoiselle, but the story, it may inspire a clever mind to misdirect. Another twist emerged when Jenkins, under questioning, admitted to a heated argument with Sir Reginald days before. He owed me wages, the butler confessed, his voice steady. Years of service, and he delayed payment. But I'd never harm him. My loyalty was to the family. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Loyalty or resentment masked as duty. Your alibi holds, Jenkins, but the heart is not so easily read. A search of Dr. Thorne's medical bag revealed a syringe, clean but capable of delivering cyanide. Standard equipment, Thorne insisted. I use it for injections, not poison. Poirot's investigation took a surprising turn when he examined Sir Reginald's wine glass, retrieved from the chapel. A faint residue, invisible to the untrained eye, clung to its rim. Not wine, but a trace of sugar syrup, odorless and sweet. Mon Dieu, Poirot whispered. The poison. It was not in the mousse alone. The glass it was tampered with, perhaps coated with cyanide masked by the syrup. Hastings gasped. But Jenkins poured the wine, and the mousse was Lady Evelyn's recipe. Are they in league? Patience, Hastings, Poirot said, his voice calm. The syrup suggests premeditation, but the hole in the glass points to the garden. The killer plays a double game. As the day waned, Poirot gathered the suspects once more. The alliances are clear, Victor and Langston plotting for control. Lady Evelyn and Dr. Thorne guarding a secret heir, Clara hiding her own deceptions. But the method, the hole, the syrup, the shadow, points to a mind most cunning. He turned to the group, his gaze piercing. Someone among you knows more than they say. A shadow in the garden, a device in the chapel, a glass tainted with sweetness. Speak now, or the truth will find you. The room fell silent, the mist outside pressing against the windows like a specter. Poirot's little gray cells hummed, weaving clues into a tapestry of deception. The killer, he knew, was watching, waiting for the next move in this deadly game. Chapter 6. The storm breaks. The mist that had cloaked Blackthorn Manor gave way to a gathering storm by late afternoon, dark clouds rolling over the Sussex hills like a portent of secrets about to burst. Thunder rumbled in the distance, its low growl echoing the tension within the manor's walls. The glass chapel, its transparent panes streaked with rain, stood as a fragile monument to the previous night's tragedy. A locked room where Sir Reginald Hargrove had met his end, poisoned by cyanide under the watchful eyes of his family and friends. Hercule Poirot, his immaculate suit unruffled despite the day's intensity, stood in the manor's drawing room, its burgundy drapes and crackling fire a stark contrast to the cold clarity of the chapel. His green eyes gleamed with purpose, his fingers steepled as he prepared to confront the suspects once more. Captain Arthur Hastings, pacing by the hearth, shook his head in frustration. Poirot, it's like a maze, he said, his voice tinged with exasperation. The hole in the glass, the syrup in the wine glass, the shadow in the garden. Every clue twists into another dead end. How do we make sense of it? Poirot's mustache curled slightly, a sign of his mind's quiet triumph. Patience, mon ami. The maze, it has an exit, and the little gray cells are drawing near. The storm outside, it mirrors the storm within. Alliances fracture, and the truth begins to emerge. The suspects were gathered, their faces a tableau of unease under the chandelier's soft glow. Lady Evelyn Hargrove sat rigidly, her silver hair pinned tightly, her hands clutching a lace handkerchief as if it could anchor her composure. Victor Hargrove leaned against a bookcase, his tanned face set in a scowl, his eyes darting to the window where lightning flashed. Clara Beaumont, her emerald, dress now muted by the dim light, twisted her pearls, her beauty overshadowed by a flicker of fear. Dr. Elias Thorne, the physician, adjusted his wire-rimmed spectacles, his scholarly calm fraying into nervous glances. Mr. Geoffrey Langston, the business partner, stubbed out a cigarette, his sharp features pale as he lit another. Jenkins, the butler, stood by the door, his weathered face impassive, though his clasped hands betrayed a faint tremor. Poirot began, his voice a velvet blade. Mesdames et messieurs, the crime in the glass chapel is no longer a mystery of if, but how and who. The cyanide, delivered to Sir Reginald's mousse or wine glass, came through a tiny hole in the glass wall, a method most ingenious, but the killer, they rely on misdirection. Let us unravel their web. He turned to Clara, his gaze piercing. Mademoiselle, you saw a shadow in the garden during the toast, yet you hesitated. Why? And what do you know of this shadow? Clara's voice trembled, her eyes wide. I wasn't sure. It was dark, the candles flickering. I saw movement near the roses, a figure, but it vanished. I thought I'd imagined it, but now I fear it was real. She glanced at Victor, then away. I swear I'm not hiding anything. Victor's voice was sharp. You're quick to point fingers, Clara. Were you distracting us while someone tampered with father's food? Poirot raised a hand. Silence, Monsieur Victor. Accusations are but noise without proof. Let us consider new evidence. He produced a small object from his pocket, a glove, leather and worn, found tucked beneath a pew in the glass chapel. This glove, he said, holding it aloft, was not here during dinner. It bears no fingerprints, but its presence suggests care, premeditation. Who among you wears such a glove? The group exchanged uneasy glances, but none claimed it. Dr. Thorne cleared his throat. I use gloves for medical work, but mine are latex, not leather. That's not mine. Poirot nodded, setting the glove aside. Very well. Let us revisit the method. The hole in the glass, small, precise, suggests a device. A needle, perhaps, or a dart fired from the garden. But the poison was in the mousse, or perhaps the wine glass coated with sugar syrup. How do these connect? He paced, his shoes clicking on the polished floor. The iron frame of the chapel, it is not merely decorative. The blueprints reveal compartments hidden for maintenance. Could one hold a mechanism? A timed release, perhaps. A new twist emerged as Poirot examined Sir Reginald's wine glass again, now in Inspector Japp's evidence bag. The syrup residue tested by a constable confirmed cyanide traces, not in the mousse alone, but in the glass. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. The killer used two vectors, mousse and wine, to ensure success, but why both? Hastings gasped. Two methods? That's fiendishly clever, Poirot, but it doubles the risk of being caught. Précisément, Poirot replied. The killer is bold, but not reckless. The syrup masked the cyanide's taste, and the whole allowed delivery from outside. But there is more. He turned to Dr. Thorne, whose face paled. Monsieur, you admitted to prescribing cyanide for Sir Reginald's insomnia. Did you also administer a sedative that evening? Thorne hesitated, then nodded. A mild dose to calm his nerves. It was routine. It wouldn't have affected the poison's speed. Poirot's eyes narrowed. A sedative makes the victim vulnerable, less alert to taste or smell. Convenient, non. Thorne bristled. I'm no murderer, Poirot. I cared for Reginald. A complication arose as Jenkins, under renewed questioning, revealed a detail overlooked. The chapel's floor, he said. There's a trap door hidden under the central rug. It leads to an old tunnel used in the 19th century for deliveries. I thought it sealed, but... Poirot's eyes lit up. A tunnel? Mon ami, this changes all. He led the group to the chapel, where rain now lashed the glass walls. Lifting the rug, he revealed a stone panel, its edges worn but intact. With Japp's help, they pried it open, revealing a narrow passage descending into darkness, its air damp and musty. The tunnel, Poirot said. It leads to the garden, perhaps the manor's cellar. A path for the shadow Clara saw. Inspection revealed the tunnel's exit in the rose garden, hidden by dense foliage. Footprints, now blurred by rain, suggested recent use. A red herring, perhaps, Poirot mused, or the killer's escape. Back in the drawing room, a new revelation shook the group. Clara, tears streaming, confessed, I'm not Clara Beaumont. My name is Clara Wade, an actress hired by Langston to charm Victor and gain influence over the family. I didn't know it would lead to murder. Langston's cigarette fell, his face ashen. It's true, but only to secure the merger. I paid her to play a role, not to kill. Victor's voice roared. You used me, both of you. Was father's death part of your scheme? Poirot silenced them. Enough. The tunnel, the glove, the syrup, the actress. These are threads in a tapestry of deception. The killer used the chapel's design, the tunnel's secrecy, and Clara's role as a distraction. He turned to the group, his voice low. The storm breaks, mes amis, and with it the lies. The hole was drilled before dinner, the poison prepared with care. The shadow in the garden was no ghost, but a killer who knew the manor's secrets. Lightning illuminated the room, casting stark shadows. Poirot's gaze lingered on each suspect. Victor's anger, Clara's tears, Langston's panic, Thorne's calm, Lady Evelyn's grief, Jenkins's stoicism. "One of you," he said, "has woven this web, and Hercule Poirot will unravel it." As thunder crashed, the drawing room felt smaller, the air charged with unspoken truths. The tunnel suggested a new path, but was it the key or another misdirection? Poirot's mind raced, the little gray cells aligning clues into a pattern only he could see. Chapter 7. Echoes of Deception. The storm that battered Blackthorn Manor had subsided by evening, leaving a restless calm over the Sussex estate. The glass chapel, its transparent walls now glistening with rain-slicked reflections, stood as a silent monument to Sir Reginald Hargrove's murder, a locked room where cyanide had struck with surgical precision. Inside the manor, the air was thick with suspicion, the grand halls echoing with the weight of unspoken truths. Hercule Poirot, his tailored suit as immaculate as ever, stood in the library, its leather-bound tomes and flickering firelight casting long shadows across his egg-shaped head. His green eyes gleamed with the intensity of a man on the cusp of revelation. His fingers steepled as he prepared to tighten the net around the killer. Captain Arthur Hastings, perched on the edge of an armchair, ran a hand through his fair hair. "Poirot. It's maddening," he said, his voice laced with urgency. "The tunnel, the glove, Clara's deception, every clue seems to point in a different direction. Are we any closer to the truth?" Poirot's mustache twitched, a subtle sign of his mind's quiet triumph. "Mon ami, the truth is like a diamond, hidden in the rough but emerging with each cut. The little gray cells, they align the pieces, the hole in the glass, the syrup in the wine, the tunnel's secret. We are close, Hastings, very close." The suspects were summoned once more, their faces a gallery of strain under the library's chandelier. Lady Evelyn Hargrove sat with her hands clasped, her silver hair catching the firelight, her eyes haunted by grief. Victor Hargrove stood by the window, his tanned face set in a scowl, his fists clenched as if ready to fight an unseen foe. Clara Wade, revealed as an actress hired by Langston, twisted her pearls, her beauty now fragile with guilt. Dr. Elias Thorne, the physician, adjusted his wire-rimmed spectacles, his scholarly calm barely masking a nervous tic. Mr. Geoffrey Langston, the business partner, lit a cigarette, his sharp features pale as smoke curled around him. Jenkins, the butler, stood by the door, his weathered face impassive, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Poirot began, his voice soft yet commanding. "Mesdames et messieurs, the web of deception is unraveling. The cyanide delivered through a tiny hole in the glass chapel's wall was a stroke of genius. The tunnel hidden beneath the floor offered a path for the killer's shadow. The glove, the syrup, the actress, all pieces of a puzzle most intricate. But now we delve deeper to the echoes of the past that resonate in this crime." He turned to Jenkins, his gaze piercing. "Monsieur, your argument with Sir Reginald over unpaid wages was it merely financial or something more?" Jenkins stiffened, his voice steady but strained. "It was about respect, sir. 30 years I served this family, and he delayed my wages, citing business troubles. I spoke sharply, but I'd never harm him. My loyalty was to Blackthorn Manor." Poirot nodded, then shifted to Lady Evelyn. "Madam, you knew of the tunnel beneath the chapel. Did you use it during your affair with Monsieur Langston?" Lady Evelyn's face flushed, her handkerchief twisting in her hands. Yes, years ago when we needed secrecy. The tunnel leads to the manor's cellar, unused since my time. I told no one, not even Reginald, after it ended. Langston stubbed out his cigarette, his voice sharp. That's irrelevant, Poirot. The affair was over decades ago. I admitted to the anonymous letters. Foolish, yes, but meant to pressure Reginald, not kill him. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Pressure, or a prelude to murder. The letters warned of poison, and poison struck. A coincidence, perhaps? He turned to the group, his tone deliberate. Let us explore the tunnel further. Leading them to the glass chapel, now dim under the storm's aftermath, Poirot lifted the rug to reveal the stone trapdoor. With Inspector Japp's assistance, they descended into the narrow passage, its walls damp and lined with cobwebs. The tunnel, barely wide enough for one, wound beneath the garden, emerging in the manor's cellar, a dusty chamber filled with old crates and forgotten wine barrels. Poirot's torch illuminated a startling find, a shelf of antique bottles, some labeled with faded warnings. Arsenic, strychnine, cyanide. Mon Dieu, he murmured, examining one. These are from the 19th century, too old to be the murder weapon. A red herring, perhaps, planted to mislead. Hastings frowned. Planted? But who knew of the tunnel besides Lady Evelyn? Précisément, Poirot replied. The killer knows the manor's secrets, perhaps better than we suspect. Back in the library, Poirot uncovered another clue, a letter in Sir Reginald's study hidden in a locked drawer. It was a draft of his new will, naming the illegitimate child Lady Evelyn had mentioned, with a substantial share of the estate. Victor's portion was reduced but not eliminated. The letter also hinted at a business deal gone sour, implicating Langston in a failed merger that cost Sir Reginald millions. Langston, Poirot said, holding up the letter, you accused Sir Reginald of mismanagement, but this suggests you misled him. Did you seek revenge? Langston's face reddened. He was stubborn, refusing to sell shares. I pushed the merger to save the company, not to ruin him. Murder? Absurd. Poirot turned to Dr. Thorne. And you, monsieur, you claimed Sir Reginald funded your research. Yet this letter suggests he stole your medical patent, ruining your career. Thorne's spectacles glinted, his voice tight. That was years ago. I forgave him. He made amends by supporting my work. I had no reason to kill. Poirot paced, his mind racing. The clues align. The tunnel, known to Lady Evelyn. The letter revealing motives. The glove, hiding fingerprints. The syrup masking cyanide. But the timelines, they are inconsistent. He reconstructed the evening. Jenkins bolted the doors at 7:30 p.m. The mousse was served at 8:15, the toast at 8:20. Sir Reginald collapsed at 8:25. Clara saw the shadow at 8:20 during the toast. The tunnel's exit was 50 yards from the chapel, a 2-minute walk. The killer, Poirot said, had mere minutes to act, yet left no trace. A new twist emerged. A maid, under questioning, recalled seeing Dr. Thorne near the chapel's exterior an hour before dinner, inspecting the glass for cracks. Routine maintenance, Thorne insisted, but his hands shook. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Maintenance or preparation? The hole in the glass was drilled with precision. You, Monsieur Thorne, have the skill. Thorne protested, but Poirot pressed on. The syrup in the wine glass, it was a backup, oui. If the mousse failed, the wine ensured death. A doctor would know this. The group stirred, accusations flying. Victor pointed at Clara. She's a liar, an actress. She could have slipped something into the glass, Clara wept. I was hired to charm, not kill. I loved Victor, even if it started as a lie. Lady Evelyn's voice broke. Reginald's secrets tore us apart. The child, the will, it was too much. Poirot silenced them, his voice firm. The echoes of deception ring clear. The tunnel was a path, the glove a shield, the letter a motive. But the killer's hand is not yet revealed. One of you has played this game with mastery. As night fell, the library's fire cast flickering shadows, mirroring the uncertainty in each face. Poirot's mind whirred, aligning the clues. The hole, drilled before dinner. The syrup, applied with care. The tunnel, a silent escape. The killer, he knew, was watching, their confidence shaken by his relentless pursuit. Chapter 8. The Final Threads. As dusk settled over Blackthorn Manor, the Sussex estate lay under a sky bruised with the remnants of the previous night's storm. The glass chapel, its transparent walls catching the last glimmers of twilight, stood as a silent testament to Sir Reginald Hargrove's murder, a locked room where cyanide had struck with deadly precision. Inside the manor, the air was charged with anticipation, the grand halls heavy with the weight of secrets on the verge of unraveling. Hercule Poirot, his tailored suit pristine despite the day's intensity, stood in the drawing room, its burgundy drapes and crackling fire casting long shadows across his egg-shaped head. His green eyes gleamed with the clarity of a man who had glimpsed the truth. His fingers steepled as he prepared to confront the suspects with the final threads of the mystery. Captain Arthur Hastings, pacing by the hearth, ran a hand through his fair hair, his voice tinged with urgency. Poirot, we're so close, yet it's still a tangle. The tunnel, the glove, the syrup, the hole in the glass, how do they fit together? The killer's been one step ahead all along. Poirot's mustache curled slightly, a sign of his mind's quiet triumph. Mon ami, the killer believes they are clever, but Hercule Poirot is cleverer still. The threads they are weaving into a tapestry most clear. Tonight we shall see the pattern complete. The suspects were gathered, their faces etched with strain under the chandelier's soft glow. Lady Evelyn Hargrove sat rigidly, her silver hair pinned tightly, her hands clutching a lace handkerchief as if it could shield her from scrutiny. Victor Hargrove leaned against a bookcase, his tanned face set in defiance, his eyes flickering with anger. Clara Wade, the actress formerly known as Clara Beaumont, twisted her pearls, her beauty now marred by guilt and fear. Dr. Elias Thorne, the physician, adjusted his wire-rimmed spectacles, his scholarly calm fraying into nervous glances. Mr. Geoffrey Langston, the business partner, lit a cigarette, his sharp features pale as smoke curled around him. Jenkins, the butler, stood by the door, his weathered face impassive, though his clasped hands betrayed a faint tremor. Poirot began, his voice a velvet blade. Mesdames et messieurs, the crime in the glass chapel is a masterpiece of deception. Cyanide delivered through a tiny hole in the glass wall, poisoned Sir Reginald's mousse or wine glass, or perhaps both. The tunnel beneath the chapel offered a hidden path. The glove concealed the killer's hand. The actress a distraction. But now we tie the final threads. He turned to the group, his gaze piercing. The method, it is clear. A hypodermic needle fired through the hole from the garden delivered cyanide to Sir Reginald's mousse. The wine glass, coated with sugar syrup laced with poison, was a fail-safe. The killer used the tunnel to approach unseen, their shadow glimpsed by Mademoiselle Clara during the toast. But who wielded this needle? Poirot produced the leather glove, holding it aloft. This glove, found in the chapel, was used to handle the needle, ensuring no fingerprints. Its wear suggests frequent use by someone skilled, precise. Dr. Thorne's face paled. I told you, Poirot, my gloves are latex for medical work. That's not mine. Poirot nodded, his eyes narrowing. Perhaps. But let us consider the whole. It was drilled before dinner, under the guise of maintenance. Who had access to the chapel's exterior? He turned to Jenkins. Monsieur, you oversee the manor's upkeep. Did you inspect the chapel that day? Jenkins shook his head, his voice steady. No, sir. The chapel's maintenance is minimal, cleaning, not repairs. I was in the manor all afternoon. Poirot's gaze shifted to Victor. Monsieur Victor, you admitted to climbing the chapel as a boy, scratching the glass. Did you revisit it recently? Victor's fists clenched. No, that was years ago. I've no reason to tamper with the chapel. Poirot paced, his shoes clicking on the polished floor. The tunnel, then. It leads to the cellar known to Lady Evelyn from her past, but others could have learned of it, through old blueprints perhaps, or family tales. A new clue emerged. A groundskeeper, questioned earlier, recalled seeing Dr. Thorne near the rose garden before dinner, carrying a small case. He said he was studying the flora, the groundskeeper noted, but he seemed hurried. Thorne's spectacles glinted, his voice tight. I was collecting samples for research. The case held botanical tools, not a drill or needle. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Botanical tools or a disguise for something more sinister? A hypodermic needle requires skill, a doctor's skill. A red herring surfaced. A resignation letter from Jenkins dated the day before the murder, found in Sir Reginald's desk. I planned to leave, Jenkins admitted, but only after settling my wages. I stayed for duty. Poirot dismissed it. A distraction, Monsieur Jenkins. The letter does not explain the hole, the needle, the poison. He turned to Clara, her tears welling. Mademoiselle, your role as an actress hired by Langston was to charm Victor. Did you know of the tunnel or the plan to poison? Clara shook her head, her voice breaking. I swear, I only played my part for the money. I saw the shadow, but I didn't know what it meant. Langston stubbed out his cigarette, his face ashen. I hired her to sway Victor, not to kill. The letters were a bluff, Poirot, nothing more. Poirot's mind raced, aligning the clues. The hole, drilled with precision, required access and skill. The tunnel offered a hidden approach. The syrup in the wine glass was a backup, masking cyanide's taste. The glove protected the killer's identity. But the timelines were tight. The shadow at 8:20 p.m., the poison at 8:25. The killer had moved swiftly, unseen. A startling twist emerged as Poirot examined the chapel's blueprints again. The iron frame, designed to amplify sound, had a hidden compartment near the hole. A small, spring-loaded mechanism capable of firing a needle. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. The chapel itself was the weapon. The needle was loaded before dinner, triggered remotely, perhaps by a vibration or timer. Hastings gasped. A mechanical trap? That's devilishly clever, Poirot, but who set it? Poirot turned to the group, his voice low. The killer knew the chapel's design, its secrets. They drilled the hole, set the mechanism, and used the tunnel to escape detection. The syrup was insurance, applied earlier to the glass. He confronted Lady Evelyn. Madame, you knew the tunnel's path. Did you share this with another? Her face crumpled. Only Reginald years ago. I swear I told no one else. Poirot's gaze shifted to Thorne. Monsieur, your presence in the garden, your access to cyanide, your skill with needles, these align too neatly. Thorne protested, his voice rising. I'm no killer. I treated Reginald, saved his life countless times. Poirot raised a hand. The truth is near. The mechanism required planning, access, and precision. One of you has woven these threads with care. He produced a final clue. A tiny metal spring found in the chapel's iron frame matching the mechanism's design. This, he said, was part of the device. It was triggered during the toast when all eyes were raised. The group stirred, accusations flying. Victor pointed at Thorne. He's the doctor, only he could have done it. Clara wept. I saw the shadow, it must have been him. Langston's voice was sharp. You're grasping, Poirot. This spring proves nothing. Poirot silenced them, his tone firm. The final threads are in place. The killer used the chapel's design, the tunnel's secrecy, and the actress's role to distract. Tomorrow in the glass chapel we shall reveal all. As night deepened, the drawing room's fire cast flickering shadows mirroring the uncertainty in each face. Poirot's mind hummed, the little gray cells aligning the final pieces, the hole, the mechanism, the syrup, the tunnel. The killer, he knew, was cornered, their confidence crumbling under his relentless pursuit. Chapter 9. The Revelation. The morning sun broke through the clouds over Blackthorn Manor, casting a pale golden light across the Sussex estate and illuminating the glass chapel, its transparent walls gleaming like a beacon of truth amidst the shadows of deceit. The chapel, once a stage for celebration, had become a tomb where Sir Reginald Hargrove met his end, poisoned by cyanide in a locked room under the gaze of his family and friends. Inside the manor, the air was electric with anticipation, the grand halls hushed as if holding their breath for the denouement. Hercule Poirot, his tailored suit pristine and his egg-shaped head tilted with purpose, stood in the glass chapel, its iron-framed walls reflecting his piercing green eyes. His hands clasped behind his back, he prepared to unveil the killer in a dramatic confrontation. Captain Arthur Hastings, standing by the chapel's oak doors, rubbed his hands nervously. "Poirot, this is it," he said, his voice low with excitement. "The tunnel, the glove, the syrup, the mechanism. You've got it all figured out, haven't you?" Poirot's mustache curled slightly, a sign of his quiet confidence. "Mon ami, the little gray cells have danced their waltz, and the music ends today. The killer believes they have outwitted Hercule Poirot, but no web of deception can withstand the light of truth." The suspects were assembled within the chapel, their faces a gallery of dread under the prismatic light of the glass walls. Lady Evelyn Hargrove sat on a pew, her silver hair catching the sunlight, her hands trembling despite her rigid posture. Victor Hargrove stood near the altar, his tanned face etched with defiance, his eyes darting to the garden beyond. Clara Wade, the actress unmasked as a hired impostor, clutched her pearls, her beauty faded by fear and guilt. Dr. Elias Thorne, the physician, adjusted his wire-rimmed spectacles, his scholarly calm replaced by a tense pallor. Mr. Geoffrey Langston, the business partner, leaned against a pew, his sharp features taut as he smoked a cigarette. Jenkins, the butler, stood by the bolted doors, his weathered face impassive but his eyes watchful. Poirot began, his voice resonant in the glass chamber. "Mesdames et messieurs, we stand in the heart of the mystery, the glass chapel where Sir Reginald Hargrove was poisoned with cyanide, an impossible crime in a locked room. The clues have led us here. A tiny hole in the glass, a tunnel beneath the floor, a glove without fingerprints, a wine glass laced with sugary cyanide, a mechanism hidden in the iron frame. Each thread has woven a tapestry of deception, but now Hercule Poirot shall reveal the killer." He paced slowly, his polished shoes clicking on the stone floor. "Let us reconstruct the crime. The chapel was locked at 7:30 p.m., as Jenkins confirmed. The mousse was served at 8:15. The toast raised at 8:20, and Sir Reginald collapsed at 8:25, poisoned by cyanide in his mousse or wine. A shadow was seen in the garden at 8:20 by Mademoiselle Clara. The tunnel offered a hidden path. The glove concealed the killer's hand. But the method, this is the genius." He pointed to the tiny hole in the glass wall. "A hypodermic needle, fired through this hole from the garden, delivered cyanide to Sir Reginald's mousse. The wine glass, coated with sugary cyanide, was a fail-safe. The mechanism, a spring-loaded device in the iron frame, triggered the needle during the toast when all eyes were raised. The killer used the tunnel to approach unseen, their shadow glimpsed by Clara. The group stirred, murmurs rippling through the chapel. Poirot raised a hand, silencing them. But who? Motives abound. Victor denied his inheritance, Clara an actress in a scheme. Langston greedy for shares, Lady Evelyn guarding a secret heir. Jenkins resentful of unpaid wages, Dr. Thorne wronged by a stolen patent. Yet only one had the skill, the access, and the cunning. He turned to Dr. Thorne, whose face paled behind his spectacles. Monsieur Thorne, you were seen near the chapel before dinner inspecting the glass. You claimed it was for maintenance, but you drilled the hole, oui? Your medical expertise allowed you to craft a precise mechanism to handle cyanide, to mask it with syrup. Thorne's voice rose, trembling. Preposterous, Poirot. I treated Reginald, saved his life countless times. Why would I kill him? Poirot's eyes gleamed. Why? Because Sir Reginald stole your medical patent years ago, ruining your career. He made amends, funding your research, but the wound festered. You saw the new will, reducing Victor's share for an illegitimate child, and feared your funding would dry up. You planned revenge. Thorne shook his head, his hands shaking. No! I forgave him. I had no reason. Poirot cut him off, his voice sharp. The evidence speaks. The spring in the iron frame. Your design. The glove found in the chapel matches those in your medical bag, though you claimed latex. The tunnel, you learned of it from old records in the Manor's archives, where you researched for your botany studies. You drilled the hole days before, under the guise of inspecting the chapel. You prepared the syrup-laced cyanide, coating the wine glass in the kitchen. During the toast, you triggered the mechanism, a vibration from a concealed device, perhaps a tuning fork in your pocket, firing the needle into the mousse. Hastings gasped. A tuning fork? That's brilliant, Poirot. The iron frame amplified the vibration, setting off the spring. Poirot nodded. Précisément. The shadow in the garden was you, Monsieur Thorne, positioning yourself to ensure the mechanism worked. The tunnel allowed you to return to the manor unseen, rejoining the group as if innocent. Lady Evelyn's voice broke. Elias, how could you? Reginald trusted you. Victor's fists clenched. You monster, for a patent? Clara wept, her pearls clattering. I saw the shadow. It was you. Langston stubbed out his cigarette, his voice sharp. You've no proof, Poirot. This is speculation. Poirot produced the metal spring, holding it aloft. This, found in the frame, matches your medical tools, Monsieur Thorne. The groundskeeper saw you in the garden, not with botanical samples, but with a drill. Your sedative made Sir Reginald vulnerable, masking the cyanide's taste. Your alibi, treating a patient in the manor, crumbles, for the patient was asleep, unattended. Thorne's composure shattered, his spectacles slipping as he slumped. I couldn't let him ruin me again. The patent was my life's work. He took it, then dangled funding like a leash. The will was the final straw. I'd lose everything. Poirot's voice softened, but his gaze was unyielding. You planned with care, monsieur. The hole, the mechanism, the syrup, the tunnel, all designed to make the crime impossible. But Hercule Poirot sees what others miss. Inspector Japp, standing by the doors, stepped forward, his notebook open. That's enough for me, Poirot. Dr. Thorne, you're under arrest for the murder of Sir Reginald Hargrove. Thorne collapsed onto a pew, his head in his hands as the constables handcuffed him. The chapel fell silent, the glass walls reflecting the stunned faces of the others. Lady Evelyn wept quietly. Victor's anger gave way to grief. Clara's. Tears slowed. Langston's cigarette burned forgotten, and Jenkins bowed his head. Poirot turned to the group, his tone measured. The little gray cells have triumphed. The hole was drilled, the mechanism set, the poison delivered. The tunnel hid the approach, the glove the hand, the actress the distraction. Justice is served. As Thorne was led away, the chapel's prisms caught the sunlight, casting rainbows across the stone floor, a fleeting beauty amidst the tragedy. Poirot's gaze lingered on the glass, his mind already at rest, the puzzle complete. Chapter 10. Dawn of Justice. The morning sun rose over Blackthorn Manor, bathing the Sussex estate in a gentle golden light that seemed to cleanse the shadows of the past day's turmoil. The glass chapel, its transparent walls sparkling like a jewel in the formal gardens, stood as a silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded within. A locked room where Sir Reginald Hargrove had been poisoned by cyanide, his death orchestrated with chilling precision. Now, with the killer unmasked, the manor exhaled, its grand halls quieter, as if relieved of the weight of secrets. Hercule Poirot, his tailored suit as impeccable as ever, stood on the manor's terrace, his egg-shaped head tilted slightly, his green eyes reflecting the calm of a puzzle solved. His waxed mustache gleamed in the sunlight, a testament to his unyielding order even in the wake of chaos. Captain Arthur Hastings, standing beside him, adjusted his hat, his fair face softened by relief but tinged with melancholy. "Poirot, you've done it again," he said, his voice warm with admiration. "Dr. Thorne, of all people, a doctor turned murderer. It's a grim business, but you saw through it all. The little gray cells never fail, do they?" Poirot's mustache curled slightly, a rare smile touching his lips. "Mon ami, the gray cells, they are but servants of logic and observation. The truth, it was always there, hidden in the glass, the shadows, the motives. Now justice dawns and Blackthorn Manor may heal." The events of the previous day lingered like a fading storm. Dr. Elias Thorne, the scholarly physician, had been arrested by Inspector Japp, his confession unraveling the intricate plot that had baffled all. In the glass chapel before the stunned suspects, Poirot had laid bare the mechanism of the crime. A hypodermic needle, fired through a tiny hole in the glass wall by a spring-loaded device hidden in the chapel's iron frame, had delivered cyanide to Sir Reginald's chocolate mousse. The wine glass, coated with sugary cyanide, had been a failsafe, ensuring death even if the mousse failed. The tunnel beneath the chapel, accessed through a hidden trapdoor, had allowed Thorne to move unseen, his shadow glimpsed by Clara Wade during the fatal toast. The leather glove, the syrup, the actress's role, all were threads in a tapestry of deception woven by a man whose quiet demeanor had masked a burning grudge. Poirot and Hastings had returned to the manor's drawing room, where the remaining suspects gathered one final time, their faces a mix of grief, relief, and exhaustion. Lady Evelyn Hargrove sat by the fire, her silver hair catching the light, her hands no longer trembling but clasped in quiet resolve. Victor Hargrove stood by the window, his tanned face softened, his defiance replaced by a somber acceptance. Clara Wade, her pearls still clutched tightly, sat with downcast eyes, her role as an actress now a burden of guilt. Mr. Geoffrey Langston, the business partner, leaned against a bookcase, his sharp features relaxed for the first time, his cigarette unlit. Jenkins, the butler, stood by the door, his weathered face etched with a quiet dignity, his loyalty to the family reaffirmed. Poirot addressed them, his voice gentle yet firm. "Mesdames et messieurs, the tragedy of Sir Reginald's death has been resolved. Dr. Thorne, driven by a long-festering wound, the theft of his medical patent, crafted a crime most ingenious. But let us review so the truth is clear to all." He paced slowly, his polished shoes clicking on the parquet floor. The hole in the glass wall, drilled days before under the guise of maintenance, was Thorne's gateway. The mechanism hidden in the iron frame was triggered by a vibration, a tuning fork in his pocket, used during the toast when all eyes were raised. The cyanide drawn from his medical supply was delivered to the mousse via a hypodermic needle, fired with precision. The wine glass, coated with sugary cyanide, was prepared in the kitchen where Thorne had access. The tunnel, known to him through archival research, allowed him to approach and escape unseen, his shadow the only trace. Hastings nodded, his eyes wide. And the glove, Poirot. It hid his fingerprints, didn't it? Précisément, Poirot replied. The leather glove found beneath a pew was not latex, as Thorne claimed, but matched those in his study. The syrup masked the cyanide's taste, and the sedative he administered to Sir Reginald ensured he noticed nothing amiss. Lady Evelyn's voice was soft, almost a whisper. Elias, I trusted him. He cared for Reginald through so many illnesses. How could he betray us? Poirot's gaze softened. Madam, betrayal is born of pain. Thorne's patent, stolen by Sir Reginald, was his life's work. The new will favoring an illegitimate child threatened his funding. He saw no other path but vengeance. Victor's voice was hoarse. He took my father from me? For a grudge? I argued with father, yes, but I loved him. Clara, tears brimming, spoke up. I played my part as an actress, but I never meant for this. I'm sorry, Victor. Langston cleared his throat, his voice low. I pushed Reginald too with the merger and those foolish letters, but murder? I never imagined. Jenkins stepped forward, his face solemn. Sir Reginald was a hard man, but fair. I stayed for the family, and I'll stay still. Poirot nodded, his tone measured. Each of you carried secrets, affairs, schemes, resentments. But only Thorne crossed the line into murder. The red herrings, the old poison bottles in the cellar, the footprints in the garden, the spare key in Victor's room were distractions, some planted by Thorne, others mere coincidence. Inspector Japp, standing by the door, grunted. A tidy case, Poirot. Thorne's locked up and the evidence is airtight. The coroners confirmed cyanide in both the mousse and the glass. You've outdone yourself. Poirot bowed slightly. Merci, mon ami Japp. The little gray cells, they serve justice. As the group dispersed, the Manor's solicitor arrived to read Sir Reginald's will, a final act of closure. The document found in his study divided the estate fairly. Lady Evelyn retained her share. Victor inherited the bulk, with provisions for the illegitimate child, a daughter now grown, living abroad. Langston's company shares were redistributed, ensuring stability. Clara, her role exposed, declined any claim, her eyes meeting Victor's in silent apology. Poirot and Hastings prepared to depart, their bags packed, the Rolls-Royce waiting to take them to the station. On the terrace, Poirot paused, gazing at the glass chapel, its walls now radiant in the morning light. A beautiful place, Hastings, he said softly. But beauty hides treachery. The chapel revealed all in the end. Hastings smiled. You saw what we couldn't, Poirot. The scratch on the glass, the spring in the frame, the tunnel, it was like a stage for your brilliance. Poirot's eyes twinkled. The stage, mon ami, is life itself, and Hercule Poirot is merely its humble director. As they drove away, the manor receded, its ivy-clad walls and gleaming chapel fading into the Sussex hills. The gardens bloomed with quiet resilience, and Blackthorn Manor began to heal, its secrets laid bare under Poirot's unyielding gaze. Inside the manor, Lady Evelyn stood by the window, watching the car disappear. He saved us, she murmured to Jenkins, who nodded silently. Victor and Clara, tentatively reconciling, walked the gardens, their future uncertain but hopeful. Langston, his ambitions tempered, prepared to rebuild the company. The glass chapel, its prisms casting rainbows, stood as a monument to truth, its fragile beauty restored. Poirot, in the car, opened his notebook, his pen poised. Another case closed, Hastings, he said, his voice calm. But the world, it is full of puzzles, and the little gray cells, they never rest. The train awaited, carrying them back to London, where new mysteries surely lurked in the fog. Blackthorn Manor, its dawn of justice secured, faded into memory, a chapter closed by the brilliance of Hercule Poirot.